wanna be crypto savvy, we can help you skip those valleys. Let's rally, yeah. If you wanna be crypto savvy, we can let investments tally. Let's rally.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. You are here at Be Crypto Savvy, and I wanted to thank you for stopping in. Before going any further, let me just say that nothing on this channel is ever financial advice, but rather our thoughts and opinions. These videos are for entertainment and educational purposes only. So when I first started this channel, my vision was to aim more towards the news and updates surrounding the crypto space, with not as heavy of the charting as we've been kind of leaning into. So when this channel first started, we got right into this, just about a 20% drop, followed by an almost 45% bull run that we've been in the midst of. So at any rate, we kind of leaned heavier into the charts due to the immense price fluctuations. However, I'm really wanting to try to correct that and get more in line with where I first envisioned this going. So with all that said, we are going to jump into some of the latest news and updates, as well as some quick touches on the charts. So first things first, let's talk about XRP. XRP yesterday, as you can see, had a price surge of almost 32%. Since then, just FYI, it has come down about 12%. As of just today, it's come down about 8%. So please do keep that in mind. There is probably a better time to purchase than right now at the time of recording. So make sure that you are staying savvy and not just diving into investments after watching a video. Now, there is a lawyer, John Deaton, who represents the retail investors within this lawsuit. John Deaton was hired by the group of XRP investors that have been following this, and he is representing the retail investor. So John Deaton was asked what would happen if the SEC were to win this case, and what he had replied is that if the SEC were to come out of this in a positive, victorious outcome, it would embolden its chair, Gary Gensler, by giving him both the cover he needs as well as the momentum to lodge similar suits against companies operating within the digital asset space. Now, whether you are an XRP maxi or whether you could care less about XRP, this particular court case is very, very important to no matter what crypto you follow. The reason behind that is exactly what John Deaton stated here. If Gary Gensler is able to walk away from this and it walks away with the dub, and SEC is walking out with their tail between their legs, you got to believe that Gary Gensler is going to be running and gunning towards every crypto company that he can, and it's going to set a very bad precedent if the SEC were to win this, at least within the United States. Now, all these crypto companies are able to operate outside of the United States. However, that's not exactly what we're talking about right here. So, moving on. Earlier this week, Ripple defendants submitted a new filing in support of their fair notice defense. The filing referenced rulings on the SEC objection in the Voyager Digital Holdings bankruptcy case. So we actually have covered the Voyager court case that did end up they ended up throwing out the SEC's objection, and the purchase of Voyager by Binance was in fact approved. So that's what this is referencing here. It noted that in rejecting the SEC's objections, that Judge Michael Wiles of the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of New York endorsed many of the arguments that Ripple defendants have presented. So let's take a little deeper dive into Jeremy Hogan's tweet here. Ripple finally filed the Voyager bankruptcy judge's decision. The judge uses abnormally strong language, stating that the U.S. regulators themselves cannot even agree on what criteria to use in deciding whether crypto is a security, quote unquote, fair notice. So that's the whole point of this case, is that XRP is lodging their defense that they were not given given fair notice and proper time as far as selling XRP, quote unquote, as securities. And let's actually open this up here. Just as defendants have highlighted in connection with their fair notice defense, Judge Wiles found that the cryptocurrency market participants operate in a regulatory environment that at best can be described as highly uncertain, in which regulators themselves cannot seem to agree as to whether cryptocurrencies are commodities that may be subject to regulation by the CFTC, or whether they are securities that are subject to securities laws, or neither, or even on what criteria should be applied in making the decision. An uncertainty that persisted despite the fact that cryptocurrency exchanges have been around for a number of years. So you can see that the wording that was used in this document was strongly just basically saying the SEC doesn't know what's up and what's down as far as the cryptocurrency world is concerned, and it's hard to make rules and fine companies when you haven't even laid out a concrete plan or rules for these companies to follow. So where does XRP go from here, and where does that put us? Well, Judge Torres isn't expected to announce her decision for about 4 to 6 more weeks. We've got a month to a month and a half before the actual news of this case actually drops. So we've got some time. In that time, you can see that we're testing support within this range from about 47.5 cents up to about 50 cents. So I do believe that we'll probably test this maybe a couple more times before ultimately coming back down. And you can see from previous videos we've talked about fair value gaps. You can see we've got some pretty good fair value gap space in here. Let me actually just go ahead and make this a different color here so we can keep those separate. So this is a good fair value gap right here that we could expect this return to come in. Now, if we do happen to push through this resistance point, the next level of resistance we're going to see is right shy of 60 cents, going up to about 62 cents. Moving on. Tether CTO on USD peg. Bitcoin maxis were right all along. At a Paris Blockchain Week 2023, Tether Chief Technology Officer Paolo Ardoino spoke with Cointelegraph reporter Joseph Hall to discuss topics such as USD coin depegging. In this conversation, he was quoted to say, "I think the mistake of our competitor was to leave $3 billion or more that were uninsured sitting in the bank. And I was surprised to see the lack of understanding of risk management from big competitors in the space. Also, to us, relying on a diverse set of jurisdictions is extremely important. In decentralization, in distribution, there is more safety." Now, I also just want to quick point out that Tether has an immense amount of liquidity sitting in it. You know what that tells me? That tells me that people are ready to pounce when dollar stable coins are loaded up on. That means people have dry powder sitting on the sidelines ready to invest as soon as the price falls to a point that they're comfortable with. So moving on with this article, I think that Bitcoin is really the ultimate way to hold your own wealth and is the safest way. And I think that if anything, what is happening in these past few months is just, demonstrating that the Bitcoiners and the Bitcoin maxis were right all along. As for other big news for today, we are currently awaiting the Fed's rate hike from the FOMC meeting. That should be here in about just over 45 minutes, and we can expect to hear whether there will be either a 0% rate increase, a 0.25, or a 0.5% increase. Now let's jump down here. According to this, we can see that there is about a 13% chance that there is going to be a 0% increase. And we have about an 86% chance that we'll see a 0.25 increase come in. And I think we can pretty much at this point factor out any 0.5, even though the UK had followed through on their side with increasing a full half a point. I think with all the things going on in the banking environment, really worldwide, not even just in the United States, I think the Fed ultimately comes out and only does a 0.25, even though personally, I think for the long-term macro picture on this, I think a 0.5 would be the best thing long-term future. Although I think that the Fed is getting a lot of heat from politicians and all different angles, to be honest with you. And I do anticipate that we will see this 25% increase. And what exactly will that do to the price of Bitcoin? So back over to our Bitcoin on the daily chart, we can see that we are currently, let's zoom in here a little bit so we can really kind of see this better. You can see that we're still really testing this bottom support band right at the $28,650 area, right about there. You can see the current price is actually sitting at $28,580. So what will happen with the announcement from the Fed today? Well, there's three different options that they could announce. And the first announcement that they could announce is that they are not going to have any increase. Now, if that were to happen, I do believe that we would end up using that as a bullish indicator, and I think that we would see price movement in the upward direction, and I think we would probably push into this, hopefully turning that into support. You can see that this is actually really major structural support dating all the way back to January 2021, and most recently here at about May to June of 2022 was the most recent time that we were in this area. We have been kind of knocking on the door the past few days. You can see that on these daily candles, each one of these past few days has touched the very bottom of this support band. So what happens if we see a 25% rate increase? Well, for my personal opinion, if we see a 25% rate increase, I do believe that we already have that price in. So I would anticipate we'd probably get a little bit of a surge, kind of coming up into this, probably testing the actual $30,000 level, which is right about here. So I think we would probably push towards that $30,000 push, trying to finish out that fifth wave extension that we've talked about in our previous video, talking about Elliott wave theory and being in this five leg pattern right here. Now, what happens if we were to see a 0.5? Well, that would be very bearish, and I think that would ultimately send us right back into our expanding triangle. Now, moving back to the 0.25% increase, what would happen with that? I did say that I think that we would ultimately end up testing and pushing that fifth wave towards the 30,000 up to possibly 32,000 before we would end up getting rejected. Now, one thing I do want to point out, that even though we do sometimes get some bullish momentum out of the Fed meetings and the price increases that they announce, I do want to point out, though, that typically, even if we do see a little bit of a push, because remember, the 0.25 has already been priced in at 86% probability, which is where we're currently sitting. So if it does, in fact, confirm the 0.25, I do expect us to keep pushing up just a little bit, but ultimately still end up getting rejected and coming down to test these levels. And you can see exactly where these levels are. We've got our first green section here that is showing, the green shows support. So right in between about 22.9 and about 23.5 is our first major support that we would run into. Let me actually, so if we ended up getting rejected, I'd expect to see something similar to, something similar to this kind of look. And depending on how far these whole things come down is another story. And we'll have to kind of take a closer look at that during the time that it's happening to kind of look at the waves and see where it's telling us it's going. So if we do happen to break through this first level, you can see at the bottom of our expanding triangle, we actually have a lot of support down here, ranging from about 21,375 down to the bottom of that expanding triangle at about 19,000. And you do have the point of control line from our volume indicator over here sitting at about 16.8. So keep all those in mind, and I think I'm actually going to leave this video right there for the day, and I'm going to start getting ready to watch the FOMC meeting and see what happens. So, as always, appreciate everybody stopping by, and if you got anything from this video, make sure that you like and subscribe, and we will catch you on the next video.
Crypto savvy. Like, comment, and subscribe. Like, comment, and subscribe, yeah.